Yo, what's up? This is Terror, and welcome back to my channel where I like to talk about all things spooky, scary, and have a little bit of fun. Today on the channel, we're going to be talking about Clown in a Cornfield. This is a movie that I know a lot of people have been really excited about, and while it is one of many dark comedy slashers that we've gotten recently, I feel like we were all interested to see how this was going to hold up against the rest of them. Clown in a Cornfield is a 2025 horror comedy slasher film written and directed by Eli Craig, who's probably most known for his previous horror comedy Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. This movie is based on the 2020 novel by the same name, written by Adam Caesar. The film focuses on a teenage girl named Quinn and her father who move into a small, quiet town of Kettle Springs, Missouri, looking for a fresh start. They soon learn that the fractured community has fallen on some very hard times after losing their treasured corn syrup factory to a mysterious fire, leaving many of its inhabitants unemployed. As the local teenagers argue and bicker with the older generation, tensions boil over, and a sinister, grinning clown emerges from the remaining cornfields to cleanse the town of its burdens, one bloody victim at a time. So being brought to us by Shudder and the guy that made Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, I had some really good expectations going into this thing. Tucker and Dale vs. Evil is a awesome movie. That thing is so funny and it really hits. The gore is on point, it's more of a comedy than a horror at the end of the day, but it all works and it all comes together well with the finale there, so I was really interested to see how on the same vibe as that Clown in a Cornfield would be. I didn't want to get my expectations set too high because I know that this was originally based on a novel, though I didn't take the time to read it going in beforehand, so no spoilers going in for me. Today, on the other hand, we're going to be talking about all the spoilers. We're going to be talking about the movie, breaking it down, going through everything that you may have missed, and overall reviewing this good fun time. So without further ado, how about we just jump into it, shall we? The film begins back in 1991, introducing us to the small town of Kettle Springs, Missouri. Here we see a group of teenagers as they are lighting up and getting lit near the old Bay Pen corn syrup factory. There's a lot going on here, but the camera focuses in as a girl winds up a jack-in-the-box adorned with the Bay Pen mascot Frendo the Clown. The box pops, and the girl locks eyes with a boy across from the bonfire. The two teens sneak off into the nearby cornfield together to get to business, but the stoned male teen quickly loses the girl on the corn. Still heading in her direction, he notices some very large footprints in the mud, calling out, "Hey, what shoe size do you wear?" Just then, the girl stumbles forth, telling the boy to run, and we see a deep wound in the back of her head as she falls forward dead. The boy screams, but before he can react, he's impaled with a farming tool and hoisted up into the air. Switching to present day, Quinn Maybrook and her father, Glenn, are moving into Kettle Springs, where Glenn has been set to take the position of their new town doctor. Glenn and Quinn share a close bond, and the two marvel at how large their new home is compared to their former apartment back in Philly. Starting off their first day in the new town, Quinn gets herself ready to head out to her new school when she finds her father sleeping standing straight up in the kitchen with the coffee maker spilling everywhere. Quinn snaps him out of it, but clearly her father's under an insane amount of stress. The two share a nice moment together before Quinn opens the door and gets jump scared by her new neighbor. It's a local boy named Rust, sent on goodwill to escort the new girl to school and to show her the way to make sure she makes it there safely. Rust here is a good guy. He's clearly missing a few marbles and maybe suffering from CTE, but he's a solid dude. On their route, he cautions Quinn that though he may seem a bit plain, she should avoid the more exciting crowds in town. There's a lot of weirdos out here and he doesn't want to see her get mixed up with the wrong folks. Arriving late due to a schedule error, Quinn enters her classroom just in time to witness as her peers play an elaborate prank on their teacher. First by putting a crudely photoshopped image of him in his Speedo on the whiteboard, and then doubling down on this by turning their test sheets into fake dating profiles of him. This gets a group of kids' detention, and Quinn, being late and thrown under the bus, lands herself in the same spot. This doesn't turn out to be such a bad thing, however, as she befriends love interest Cole Hill, the son of a local town official, as well as his group of friends, including mean girl Janet, Jocko Matt, his girlfriend Ronnie, and another prankster named Tucker. Quinn tells them that the whole town feels like it's stuck in the past, and the kids interject that the way that they've found some fun in town has been creating a serial killer out of the local clown mascot Frendo in order to use him in their YouTube videos. They've been successful in this, amassing a whole 65,000 subscribers on their YouTube channel. Wow, congratulations kids. Hopefully one day I could be so lucky. After school, Quinn meets her father at the only diner in town to eat dinner when they're interrupted and joined at the table by the local local sheriff. The guy seems nice enough, and Glenn really needs to make a good impression in their new town, knowing that he's the only medical practitioner in the area. He does offer some advice to Quinn, however, stating that she needs to stay away from troublemakers in the area. There's a few bad seeds walking around. This goes in one ear and out the other, as she's more focused on spotting her new friends hanging around outside. She excuses herself from the table, and the new friends show their colors when they immediately goad her into helping them boot some liquor from the corner store. The group execute this coordinated heist, with Matt and Tucker staging a fight to distract the clerk, giving Janet and Ronnie a window to swipe a bottle. Cole does leave a cold $40 on the counter to cover the loss, though. After their heist, the group link up at their local hangout spot, resembling some kind of junkyard, and here we learn exactly why the town is so contentious these days. During one of the group's YouTube escapades shooting Frendo videos, they were filming inside of the actual Bay Pen corn syrup factory. Everything went smooth, but shortly after they left, a fire broke out and the whole thing burned to the ground. This was a huge hit for the local economy, as the factory brought in all of the revenue that kept the place afloat. The kids claimed that the whole thing just wasn't their fault, though. The official cause of the fire was listed as an electrical error. Even so, it's too close of a coincidence, and no one in the town believes they're innocent. Quinn is shaken up by this, but takes her new friends on their word. Matt excuses himself from the hangout, but as he does, a POV angle creeps up on him from the shadows, and he belts out a scream. Returning to the campfire, we see him creep around the corner, intestines spilling into his hands. Quinn screams in horror as Frendo emerges from the night and slashes at her. This visage is broken when Cole reveals it to just be a prank. Quinn is freaked out at first, but eases in as she realizes she's now an official part of this group. As things wind down, Quinn and Cole get cozy, and the two share stories of how they've lost loved ones at separate events over the summer. Quinn lost her mother to an OD, which subsequently led to her father having an at-work mental breakdown and relocating the two to their new spot in town. Cole responds, sharing that his little sister passed away after diving into a lake from some tall rocks and missing the water below. The shared trauma bonds the two closer together, and as Cole drops her off at home, they even share a kiss before being interrupted by an extremely upset father. Quinn reflects on her busy first day in town and watches the video she helped her friends make back a few times when she notices something a little weird in frame. She zooms in and takes a screenshot of a second lurking clown in the background, sending it to the friends to see if they noticed. They do, but aren't exactly sure why it would be there. While examining the photos, Tucker notices a small jack-in-the-box adorned with Bay Pen Frendo logos sitting on his shelf. He cranks the box, and when it pops, he receives a ring note to inform him that someone is currently outside of his house wearing a Frendo costume. Knowing this has to be a prank, Tucker arms himself with a Nerf gun and stalks the home looking for his friends in a mask. He enters a room, finding an open closet with a mirror hanging on the back. After shutting it, we see him slashed in the throat in its reflection. So, we got a busy first day in town, don't we? I can only imagine how going from a big city like Philadelphia into a small town like this must be complete culture shock. I live on the East Coast, so I can only imagine what it's like to completely settle down in one of those flyover states. And when they say that this place feels like it's stuck in the past, they really mean it. There's one restaurant in this whole place. There's no McDonald's, no Taco Bell, no Chick-fil-A. Nope, they just got the diner. They also mentioned that Glenn here is the only doctor in town. It cannot be stressed enough how close proximity these people are all to each other. I mean, even when Quinn has dinner with her father, the waitress is like giving her a side eye, almost like she knows the kid has detention and is hanging out with the wrong people or something. Speaking of hanging out with the wrong people, it has now been Rust, the teacher, and the sheriff that have tried to warn Quinn about this specific group of kids that she's hanging out with. It's good that she was able to make some friends though, huh? And why wouldn't you pick these guys? I mean, they shoot cool little horror videos in their spare time. They have a little bit of fun in this town. Bad influence or not, I'm sure that these group of people are a lot more tame than anything that she was seeing out in Philly. So it's day 2 in town, and today is Founders Day. Founders Day is a huge deal in the Springs. Even though the factory is burned down, they still want to uphold all of the great things that it's done for them and celebrate with a parade. For Cole's family, this is an even bigger deal, as him and his father have plans to address their citizenship and try to lead by a good example. At first, Cole's dad doesn't even want him leaving the house, calling out his recent behavior and scolding him for playing such a cruel joke on their teacher, noting that the poor man's brother had passed this year after losing his job at the factory. Taking the wind from his sails, Cole's Cole's soft-spoken mother gives him the green light to go out and enjoy himself anyway. Quinn meets up with the rest of the group, sub Tucker, when they tell her that Rust is kind of a weirdo. He used to be really good friends with Cole back in the day, but the two grew apart and Rust holds a grudge against him and his new friends. When Cole arrives, they tell him that they have a prank planned and head off, leaving the two lovebirds alone. Cole invites Quinn to his annual Father's Day shindig after the parade, but just then, a man in his undies wearing a Frendo mask rides in on a unicycle, and while juggling lit, fused fake bombs while being chased by the police, one of them manages to land on a large Frendo float, setting the whole thing to blaze. Panic ensues, and the group are swiftly thrown into a holding cell by the local sheriff. The kids protest that they didn't actually do anything, and arresting them was foolish when Cole's dad will just bail them out anyway. They aren't alone in here though. An old vagrant from the corner looks in their direction and tells them sharply not to mess with Frendo. Glenn arrives to pick up his daughter and scolds her for her recent behavior. Day 1 detention, day 2 jail? What has she been getting into? He tells her he went out and bought her a car, getting her a stick shift in an attempt to start a bonding experience, but tells her to just forget that now. She's grounded. Elsewhere, Matt is pumping iron at the home gym when he finds a jack-in-the-box of his own, and a very familiar face creeps in to give him a spot. Assuming it's just Tucker, Matt thinks nothing of this and carries on until Frendo grabs the barbell and attaches a saw blade to it. Thrusting down on the makeshift weapon, the sinister clown cuts the head into a garbage bin. That night, Quinn is settled in when Cole sends her a text stating that he's outside of her house. Deciding to head out against her father's wishes, she sneaks out, and the two head to a barn located deep in a cornfield where they hold this annual gathering. On their way to the function, Cole sweet talks Quinn and does his best to assure her that the night would go off without a problem. The past few days were rough, but he's doing all that he can to be responsible about it. He gives her a little gift, and what do you know, it's a Babe Pen jack-in-the-box. The same exact one given to Matt and Tucker before their deaths. She winds it up, but before it pops, the car screeches to a halt with Cole's old friend Rust standing between the headlights. The two boys trade insults back and forth for a moment before continuing on in their separate ways. Okay, so I just want to jump in here to collect all of our red herrings that we've heard of so far. Now, I don't know about you guys, but right here, I'm definitely feeling something about Cole. Why does he have that jack-in-the-box? The kids in their YouTube videos, they had never seen the jack-in-the-box before. They were never using it. We can tell that because Matt and Tucker both act completely surprised when they see it for the first time. They act like they've never seen one of these before. But for some reason, Cole was able to get his hands on one, huh? Yeah, we're gonna bookmark that. Rust is also a pretty interesting character, isn't he? I wouldn't be too surprised if he likes to put on a clown costume in his spare time. And just to throw one more in there, clearly the dad's been going through a lot, hasn't he? The fact that he was standing there in the kitchen sleeping standing up kind of makes me feel like maybe he could be prone to sleepwalking. I don't know though. Let's just see where this movie takes us. Immediately upon their arrival to the barn in the cornfield, the DJ stops the track and calls Cole up for a speech to his peers. He hypes the crowd, promising to be the future that they need to lead their generation. The music kicks back on and they all dance in celebration of their bright futures. Quinn escorts Cole away from the noise. The two shack up in a nearby storage shed. Quinn tries to put the moves on Cole, but he's not really feeling it. He asks her if they can move a little slower, and she freaks out in embarrassment. Leaving the shed and grabbing a beer, she's met by Janet and Ronnie, who essentially tell her it happens. Cole turns down everyone eventually. The girls bicker back and forth before their argument is interrupted by a girl screaming, wandering from the fields and collapsing at their feet with an arrow in her back. The girls think that this is a fun prank and approach the corpse playfully, joking about it. Something else comes flying over the corn though, and the girls realize this is a casting of Matt's head. Janet and Ronnie pick it up, throw it back and forth playing catch, and admire the handiwork before Quinn confirms the girl to be dead, and they all realize exactly what's happening here. Enter the clown. Frendo emerges from the corn and begins terrorizing the party. Chasing the girls and slashing away, he nearly catches them when he's blown away by a buckshot from Rust. Curious who's under the mask, Quinn leans over to try to figure this out, but before she can reach the body, we see yet another clown from the field. Actually, it's 2 clowns. 3 clowns? Oh my god, it's a whole army of Frendo clowns. There's gotta be like 20 or 30 of them now approaching our group. The rest of the partygoers book it into the farmhouse and lock the thing down, stranding our group of friends outside to fend for themselves. Okay, so plot twist, clowns in a cornfield. This surprise here, I feel like was kept really well under wraps. I had no idea that this was coming. It is an interesting turn for us to take, and it really ups the fear factor of the movie, knowing that there's just clowns everywhere. There's honestly so many of them. We've got clowns with bats, clowns with axes, clowns with guns, clowns with chainsaws. All the clowns varying in different sizes, heights, shapes, what have you. Cole meets back up with the group and they fortify themselves in the nearby storage shed we visited earlier. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be the shelter they need as friendos begin breaking their way through the wooden walls and door. The friends panic as they look for a way out while Rust and Cole duke out their baggage. Cole tries to throw shade at Rust, but he responds by questioning how Cole could throw away everything they had together, citing that they had something very special between them. This clicks the pieces into place for the girls, now realizing what Cole's hangup was this whole time, and in that moment of clarity, they find a storm drain that they can use to escape from the shed. While the girls and Cole enter the drain, Rust stays behind to rig up an explosive distraction and promises to follow suit. When the group exits the drain just a few yards away, they see the barn erupt and flaming friendos falling to the ground all over. They make their way to the main road and begin their trek to safety. Quinn's father Glenn wakes up and checks on his daughter, feeling regretful of their earlier argument. When he gets to her room though, he immediately realizes that she's snuck out and heads to the streets to search for the misbehaving teenager. He drives around calling her phone, leaving her messages assuring her that he's not mad and just wants to know she's safe. Just then, he passes his medical practice, noticing that the building had been broken into. He enters and finds two clowns standing in the operating room, one clutching his wrist where his hand should be. The clowns take Glenn hostage, demanding the doctor operate and save the clown's life without removing his mask. If he refuses, his daughter dies. After wandering for some time, the local sheriff arrives and quickly apprehends Cole, separating him from the rest of the group. The girls beg the sheriff to help them, explaining everything they'd been through, but he just thinks that this is another prank and he's not having it. The sheriff confiscates their only gun, throws Cole in the back, and leaves the girls stranded and soaked in blood, still in the middle of the cornfield. With no other options, they make a run to the home located on the property where the party was being held. This proves to be a difficult feat though, as they are chased by multiple friendos in hot pursuit. At one point, the girls attempt to duck and lose the trail, but as the girls do their best to conceal each other's cries, Frendo appears and joins them in their hiding spot. The chase continues and leads to Ronnie being impaled by a chainsaw and carved into pieces, covering Janet in a fresh coat of blood. Quinn and Janet arrive to the main house and find what appears to be a dead body in a Frendo costume lying on the couch. They inspect the body, but are interrupted by a phone ringing. When they answer, the caller hangs up immediately. They try to use the phone to dial 911, but the poor kids don't know how to work a rotary phone and have to give up in failure. They look up and realize before them is a compiling of evidence related to separate Frendo murders scattered years apart. And just as they realize that they may not have created the killer clown after all, another Frendo creeps up from behind with a pitchfork and stabs Janet through the gut. Forced to remove the weapon from her friend, Quinn turns it on her attacker and gets the upper hand here. She flees to a truck parked out front, but unable to drive a stick shift, Quinn is stuck in prime positioning for the clowns to attack. They break through the windows and the screen fades to black. So if you hadn't felt it yet, you're definitely feeling it now. The themes in this movie are definitely screaming at you. Between the rotary phone and the stick shift, the discrepancies between the younger and older generations in the town could not be more clear at the moment. In a town that's just seated so far in the past, they just refuse to adapt with the younger generation. Therefore, we still got stick shift vehicles and rotary phones all over the place. There's even a line here where Quinn's sitting in the car and she screams to herself that if your father ever wants to teach you how to drive stick, you say yes. We'll talk about this a little bit more towards the end of the movie because there's still a little bit more to unpack here, but trust me, it's loud. Back at Glenn's medical practice, he does his best to save his patient, but things aren't really looking good. He needs to find his daughter and devises a plan to escape. Distracting the healthy attacker, he gets one over by stabbing him in the neck and allowing the one without a hand to just simply bleed out. Now free from his hostage situation, Glenn snags a walkie-talkie from a friendo and heads out to find his daughter Quinn. When she awakes, Quinn is tied up somewhere inside of the Bay Pen corn syrup factory. Here, all of the friendos are gathered and unmask themselves, revealing them to be none other than the older citizenship of Kettle Springs. And the big kicker? Cole's father comes down in full Jack Nicholson Joker face paint, calling himself the ringleader of this circus. Cole is here, bound, gagged, and hanging from a beam in the center of the room. His father gives a speech explaining that every decade or so, the town receives a bad crop in one form or another that just needs to be scrapped. In the 70s, it was the homeless. In the 80s, it was the hippies. In the 90s, they dealt with the burnouts. And now they believe this new generation is the worst crop yet. Claiming the only way to save their town is to pull out the bad seeds, he tells his son that he is a disappointment. He blames Cole for the death of his younger sister as well as the burning of the factory. Just before he can put the night to an end and blame Cole for the whole thing, Quinn's father drives through a wall with the most accuracy and precision vision possible, positioning the car just under Cole's feet and sending debris flying into multiple friendos. Quinn frees herself with the sheriff chasing after her, and after shooting Glenn in the gut, Cole's father confronts his son one-on-one. Cole tells his father that he knows Daddy Dearest is actually the one responsible for burning down the factory himself over insurance fraud, with the father confirming this and stating he also did it so that he could have a reason to radicalize the town further. Elsewhere in the factory, Quinn finds her way to a storage room full of Frendo costumes and supplies. Hiding among the mannequins, she outsmarts the sheriff, giving her a chance to pounce on him with a cattle prod. She sticks it into his mouth, frying him to a crisp, before heading back to the main area and hoping to save her father and friend. When she gets there, Cole's father hops in the driver's seat and backs the car up, leaving Cole to hang in the air. She does her best to hold his feet up, but Cole is ultimately saved when Rust shows up and shoots the rope with his final shot in his rifle. Glenn and his daughter embrace, happy that they both made it through the night, and Cole does the very same with Rust. The four survivors make their way to a small clown car and fire it up to head back to town. This moment's reprieve is ended, however, when the last Frendo approaches with a chainsaw. Quinn goes to gun it, but there's one problem. It's another stick shift. This time, her father coaches her through it, and she manages to crank it up, running down the clown. Our film ends as Glenn, Cole, and Rust say their goodbyes to Quinn, who is heading off to college. Glenn is now running for the mayor of Kettle Springs, hoping to lead the town in a new direction following the massive slaughter. Cole and Rust are now out of the closet and embrace their relationship. Quinn drives off into the sunset in the very car her father bought her, finally able to drive that stick shift. Alright, so that was Clown in a Cornfield. How'd you feel about the movie today? There's clearly a lot going on here, and as I touched on earlier, there's a lot of themes with generation versus generation at play. Ultimately, in the end, neither generation had it 100% nailed down. The young kids could have escaped multiple times from this whole situation if they had just adapted to their surroundings. And the older gen's refusal to adapt to everything kinda led them down a path of being crazed mass murderers. But it would be Quinn who would bridge the gap, master the stick shift, and finish the job. I don't know. I think that's what they were trying to say here. The acting in Clown in a Cornfield was great. I really liked all of the characters, especially Quinn and Glenn's characters. The way that they were portrayed and written just really did it for me. It really nailed it home, and they were absolutely believable. A lot of the characters in the film were very tropey and felt like they were written to be a character, but we love to see that in slashers, don't we? I feel like the performances that were made by the lead actors really just carried it enough for me to look over that. One thing I do have to touch on is that, like, what happened to Cole's dad at the end of the movie? He backs out in the car and then just completely disappears. I've heard some people say that they think that that final clown that gets hit by the car was Cole's dad, but I don't think so. I am under the assumption that that was actually the teacher, the one that was carrying the chainsaw earlier in the movie. I think that Cole's dad may have actually just up and left. We've said it a bunch of times now, but I'll remind you that Clown in the Cornfield is the first in a 3-part book series, so it would make sense if the dad escaped and maybe came back for revenge in one of these two here. Clown in a Cornfield was good, but do you think it was good enough to have a sequel? Personally, I'm not quite sure. Maybe it'll come out straight to Shudder, since this one was made by Shudder. If they put it out into theaters, I'll buy a ticket to see it again. This whole story was just very surface level, and I don't really see it needing a sequel, if anything like that. Clown in a Cornfield is not the next Terrifier, that's for sure. So Clown in a Cornfield, Hard Eyes, and Hell of a Summer were 3 horror comedy slashers that all came out very close together here, and I feel like they were all solid 7 out of 10s in quality. It's hard not to compare and contrast these. They all had similarities and differences, but at their core, they're all very similar still. Just for the fun of it, if I had to rank them, I'd do Hard Eyes, Clown in a Cornfield, Hell of a Summer in that order. But again, they're all 7 out of 10s for me, all solid. They're all a good time if you see them on streaming and you just want to check out that sort of thing. Also, if you're a horror movie nerd, definitely go out and see all 3 of them. I'd recommend them. Though they're not necessarily cream of the crop, they're not the bad seeds that Blumhouse has been putting out recently, I'll tell you that. But anyways, how'd you guys feel about Clown in a Cornfield today? Hit those comments down below and let me know. Are you a fan of these dark comedy slashers? Are you like me and you just can't get enough of them? And if you've seen Hard Eyes, Clown in a Cornfield, and Hell of a Summer, let me know how those 3 stack up against each other for you personally. I'm all in for these kinds of movies, so I'll eat them up as much as I can. But if you enjoyed my video today, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos just like this. Also, if you enjoyed it, be sure to send it over to a friend you think may enjoy it too. I'm still new over here on YouTube, so give my catalog a browse. You may find some other videos you like. I've been Elder Terror, and whether your day's been going good or bad today, I hope it gets better.